Starting now. Hello and welcome to Wagon Wellness. Whilst we give everyone a moment to join, we'd love for you to introduce yourselves and your dogs in the chat box below. Tell us their name, breed and age. We always enjoy hearing who's here with us and meeting your pups, even if it is virtually. So do introduce yourselves. We'll just give it a moment to see how many have come through. We can still see people joining. So as I say, do introduce yourselves at the bottom in the chat box. Tell us the name, breed and age. We always enjoy hearing who's here with us. Brilliant. I can see people coming through there and introducing themselves. So welcome to Wagon Wellness, everybody. I can still see people coming through. So I'm just going to give it another moment, guys. But yeah, hello and welcome to anybody who is just joining us. Do introduce yourselves into the chat box at the bottom. Tell us their name, their breed and their age. I can see lots of people coming through. Hello, Jay. Hello, Margaret. Hello, Maisie. Lindsay with Robin. Pumpkin. I love that name, Pumpkin. That's a very nice name. Brilliant. Hello, everybody. Right, I think what we'll do is we will get started. But as I say, feel free to introduce yourselves into the chat box as we do go along, because we love meeting your pups, even though it is virtually. But just gets us a feel of who we've got here today. Fantastic. So, hello, everybody. My name's Rachel, and I'll be your host today. I'm one of the in-house veterinary nurses here at Butternut Box, and I've been part of the team now for 3.5 years. I've worked as a registered veterinary nurse for the last 12 years, and there's nothing I enjoy more than supporting our customers and their pooches. Our vet nurse team is a small but mighty group of 4, and today I'm joined with my lovely colleagues Anna and Lucy, who are also veterinary nurses here at Butternut. If you've ever booked an appointment with us or sent an email to the vet nurse team, chances are it'll be one of us helping you and your dog. Between us, we bring a wealth of knowledge and experience from working across a wide range of practices. And of course, we're all complete dog lovers. Each of us do all have our own pups at home, so we really do understand just how important they are to the family. So this month's webinar is all about canine nutrition and what our dogs really need to thrive. So we will kick things off by looking into the foundations of good nutrition and what makes a food truly complete and balanced. And from there, we'll explore the different types of food available on the market, and we can weigh up the pros and cons of each. And finally, we'll then dive into how nutritional needs change across different life stages and health conditions, and how we can adapt feeding to keep our pooches happy, healthy, and thriving. Along the way, we will be running a few interactive polls and things, just to get you all involved. And at the end, there will be plenty of time for question and answers. You can pop any questions into the Q&A box. It should be open now. That's at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll go through them once the girls have finished their parts. There's also a chat box, as we already know. So as I say, it'll be open throughout the session. So feel free to say hello, introduce yourself and your dogs, because we do love hearing about them, and check with each other as well as we go. But before we do jump in, let's get started with a bit of myth busting on dog nutrition. I'll read out a few statements, and I'd love for you to pop into the chat whether you think they're true or false. Don't worry if you're not sure. It's not a test. We, just have a guess, and we'll reveal the answers together. So let's have a little look. So the first one, just going to move the chat box across just so that I can see all of your lovely answers as well. Brilliant. So complete means the food provides everything your dog needs nutritionally. Is this true or is this false? So we've got a lot of falses coming through. We've got some trues. As I say, it's not a test, just have a go. So complete. So if a food is called a complete diet, does this mean that it's everything your dog needs nutritionally? So we've got lots of trues, lots of false. It's a mixed bag. Still got some coming through. Brilliant. So yes, the answer is true. So in pet food, complete is actually a legal defined term. It means the food has the right balance of protein, fat, carbs, vitamins and minerals for a long-term feeding. And yeah, your pooch will get everything they need from the food. So let's have a little look at the next one. So fiber is just a filler and has no nutritional role for dogs. Is this true or is this false? So fibre is just a filler and has no nutritional role for dogs. Is this true or false? Lots of falses coming through. Anybody got anything else? Anybody think that it's true? Oh, we've got one true there. Yeah, fantastic. False, 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 false. Lots of falses. Yeah, you're all absolutely right. So yeah, it is false. So fibre actually supports gut health and helps regulate digestion. It's really, really important part of our dog's diet. Next, let's have a little look. Grain-free food is always healthier for dogs. Is this true or is this false? So grain-free food is always healthier for dogs. Got a mixed bag again. Lots of trues, lots of falses. Brilliant. Loving the interaction, by the way. Keep it going. Fantastic. So lots of trues, lots of falses. So yeah, so grain-free food is always healthier for dogs. It's actually false. So grains like quinoa, pearl barley, rice, they're all great sources of fibre and energy. Grain diets are only needed if a dog has a, grain-free diet, sorry, is only needed if a dog has a genuine grain allergy. So last but not least, before we do kickstart into all the lovely information that the girls have got for you today, protein is only important for building muscle. Is that true or is that false? So protein is only important for building muscle. Lots of falses. Yeah, you're all absolutely on the right wavelength. Lots of falses coming through. So yeah, it is false. Protein is only important for building muscle. It's not true. So protein also supports skin, coat, the immune system, and hormone production as well. It's essential, sorry, for overall health, not just muscles. So that is false. Fantastic. So now we are going to pass to Anna, who is going to discuss the foundations of canine nutrition.
Thank you, Rachel. And yeah, loving the interaction. It's great to meet you all and dive into Nutrition 101. I wanted to kick off with what nutrients does your dog actually need? And I challenge you all, because you've been so interactive already, to drop into the chat box. And I promise this will be the last time I asked for it, but drop into the chat box what just one call out nutrient that you can think of that your dog actually needs. Amazing. Thank you, Ryan, for kicking it off. Yeah, drop them in, shout them out. What nutrient do you think your dog actually needs? And we will kick into it. So keep them coming, protein, vitamins. Yeah, I love it. So you're obviously really clued up and hopefully can take away just a few little things from my session and just something to cover in terms of nutrition. So as Rachel said, I'm Anna, one of the vet nurses here at Butternut Box. And today we're talking through what's actually kind of in the bowl. We're going to be covering the key nutrients your dog needs, what we kind of even think about when we say sort of balanced diets, and also the different categories that are available. And we've popped these into kind of 4 categories. And it's nice just to go into the different ones, look at where they formed and kind of pros and cons. But again, no bashing. It's all about what works for you, for your dogs, what fits with lifestyles, different requirements. And it's good to just have something to take away when looking at future foods. But we're going to start right at the kind of basics. So the nutrients that actually go into the dog food. And the biggest one to call out, and it's great seeing you all mention it, is protein. So when it comes to protein, we would call this like the builder. It's ultimately the building block of life. It's essential for our dog's muscle, skin, as Rachel mentioned, immune system, even hormones and enzymes. And dogs actually require 10 essential amino acids that they cannot make themselves. So we have to give it to them through their food. And when it comes to protein, quality really matters just as much, if not more, than quantity. And a fresh, digestible protein like chicken or beef provides more usable nutrition than kind of lower quality meat meal. So if you are looking at a label in a supermarket You might compare, say, butternut's protein content and percentage to the likes of maybe a packeted one, and maybe they measure up in terms of percentage, but it doesn't mean the same thing. And it definitely comes down to quantity and quality. A quick myth bust: more protein does not make dogs hyperactive. It's a really common belief that feeding a really high protein diet can make your dog hyper, and it can definitely impact, but there's a lot of research that actually shows the link to protein levels isn't as straightforward as just simply reducing protein to make your dog less hyper. And then we have fat. And I think we all probably think about fat in a different way. We call this the fuel and the protector. So fat is dog's most energy dense nutrient. It provides 9 kcals of energy per gram, and that's more than double of what protein or carbs provide. But fat isn't just about fuel. It's ultimately delivering essential fatty acids like our omega-3s, omega-6. And these are hugely important in not just that shiny coat, but also brain development, keeping things tip-top and functioning, and hormone production. And our working and sporting dogs actually heavily rely on fat as a main endurance fuel. Without it, they can't sustain energy for long runs or hard work. And you can take my Labrador. She's 2 years old. She's from working lines. Come winter, her energy requirement and expenditure actually doubles. So she needs more fuel. But it's not just about putting more fuel in. It's about the right fuel, about high impact, and about giving her something that's going to slow burn and sustain her for the whole day. And if a diet is too low in fat, you might notice something more common like itchy skin, flaky skin. They might have a poor coat. It can actually affect fertility as well in some breeding dogs. And a kind of interesting one is with sled dogs in peak training, they can actually get 60% of their energy just from fat. So it's a real performance high fuel source. We don't obviously want that for our companion dogs, but it's a nice thing to know and understand. And carbohydrates. So with carbohydrates, this is what we would kind of describe as like the energy partner. Carbs, now they aren't technically essential for dogs, not in the same way that protein and fats are, but they have a huge beneficial benefit to our dogs. They are a great source of fiber, and this supports gut health, stool quality, and they can also really help regulate appetite. Cooked carbohydrates, so your potatoes, your pearl barleys, these are really digestible for dogs, and they're also spare protein, providing energy. So protein can be used for growth and repair instead of just kind of fueling and supporting the body. Some people do definitely believe that dogs can't digest carbs, but it is just simply not true. And there are thousands of studies that show dogs digest cooked starches really well, especially when gently cooked or extruded. It's when it's that real raw form that can cause problems. So what does a truly balanced diet look like and why? So we've looked at protein, we've covered fats, we've covered carbohydrates, but there's more to this story than that ticking the boxes and covering our dogs. And these are vitamins, minerals, and of course, water. So vitamins, sorry, are essential for metabolism, for immunity, for growth, for well-being. And dogs need both fat soluble, which is our A, our D, our E, K vitamins, and our water soluble, which is our B complex, and of course our vitamin C. With our water soluble vitamins, our B and our C, these ultimately dissolve, they break down in water. They travel through the dog's bloodstream. They're not excessively stored. They pass out through the dog's urine, and we have to ensure our dogs are regulating their intake. They support energy, nerves, that real immune system to make sure our dogs, if hit by a bug or if they've eaten something naughty, have the ability and the cover from things like vitamins and minerals to be able to recover, keeping the immune system really top tip. And fat soluble. So this is our A, D, E, and K. They ultimately dissolve in fat. They do get stored, so these can be stored within the body. And this is in the liver and in the fat tissue. With these vitamins, they can actually build up. So we know too much can actually be toxic. but they are so vital in vision, bones, antioxidant protection, and of course, blood clotting. And an interesting fact is vitamin D actually helps our dogs absorb calcium, which gives us the big, strong bones. But unlike humans, dogs can't make enough vitamin D from sunlight. It has to come from their diet. So making sure it is balanced and complete and ticking all these boxes right down to something like vitamin D are vital to keep our dog healthy, not through just puppyhood, but right through to keeping those bones strong for our senior dogs. And minerals. So minerals often get a little bit overlooked, but are just as important. They support bones, teeth, muscle function, can be things like nerve signaling, and of course, hydration. Important ones include, again, our calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and of course, sodium. And balance is key. So too much calcium in puppies can lead to joint problems, while deficiencies can lead to issues with bones and growth. And the one that I think we often forget with nutrition is water. It's often overlooked, but is essential for life, and it makes up 60 to 70% of a dog's body weight. It supports digestion, nutrient transport, temperature regulation, even joint health. And dogs should always have access to fresh, clean water, and wet food can contribute to hydration, especially for maybe those senior dogs or those dogs that are recovering, or potentially those dogs that are maybe a little bit less active. And a nutrient call out, even mild dehydration can reduce energy levels, reduce focus. So if your dog's not drinking enough, say in the hot weather, it's worth being aware, monitoring, and making sure uptake is important. So a diet needs to be complete and balanced, which means it needs to meet all the recognised standards. The governing body for us is something called FEDIAF, and in Europe and America, it's the AAFCO. And these standards make sure that everything is right, that there is enough protein source, there is fat, there's vitamins, there's minerals, but also they are in the correct ratio. And a balanced diet includes all of these things. So macronutrients, protein, fat, carbs, our micronutrients, our vitamins, our minerals, and of course our water. But it isn't just about calories or content, it's about digestibility and ingredient quality. This can really affect how the nutrition actually plays an impact on your dog, how it absorbs it, how it breaks it down, how it uses it up, and how it gets rid of it. And as we said in the beginning, two foods with the same percentage, take protein, for example, can have a very different effect depending on how digestible that protein is, how they can access it, how they can use it all up. And this can be really important for our puppies that are busy and building and growing, our adult dogs that are maintaining, and our senior dogs that ultimately maybe things are working a bit slower and a bit stickier. Making it as easy and accessible as possible makes a huge difference for them actually making the most of this nutrition. And on to the next slide, we are diving in to talk about actual types of dog food. And this might sound like a really open conversation. You all know about different types of dog foods. But sometimes it's really interesting to dive in and look at why they came about, where they even came about, and why there are pros and cons to all of them. There is no shame or hating. There's a reason for them all. And I think we've probably all, to an extent, fed some of these. Kibble is the first call out, or dry food. It came first way back in the 1860s when a businessman in England developed a baked biscuit style dog food. Later, extrusion technologies made crunchy kibble, and that's where we kind of are now. Obviously, it's probably a lot more balanced, but it was created for convenience, shelf life, probably a wee bit for what we expect. I don't know if there was any point our dog said we want brown, crispy biscuits, but it's what we expect, it's what we want. And the pros is it's convenient, super accessible. You can pop it on your shelf in a cupboard, you can buy it online now, you can buy it in a shop. Super easy to store and really long lasting. The cons, it does come with a processing side. It has got lower moisture, so dogs do need to drink more outside meals. And again, nutrient quality does depend on the ingredient source. There is also so much options. Canned and wet foods became super popular around World War II, and this is when our kind of tinning technology really advanced. Pros, high moisture content is super palatable, It's often a lifesaver if you maybe have a picky or fussy eater. The kind of more con to the side of it is storage. It can be quite expensive per meal, and it does have, again, a form that we've created. So we've said we want an alu tray that looks like a pate, we want meaty chunks and gravy, and with that comes with a specific requirement of how we can make it look like that so that it can go in a tray or a can. Raw feeding. It developed on the kind of barf model, which is biologically appropriate raw food, and it has really grown in traction and popularity from around the 90s. The focus is on raw, clean, stripped back, very visible proteins, ingredients. And I think a lot of this has maybe come from us. Our dogs have advanced, our understanding of them has advanced, and we maybe are at a stage where we want to see what's going in the bowl. And you can with raw. It lets you clearly see what's in it. You can break it apart and have a really good understanding. And this is really good for allergies and sensitivities and things because you know what's in the bowl is what you're feeding your dog. Pros, it's definitely less processed, it's high quality and protein, and you can see what's in the bowl. From the other side, it does come with food safety risks. You do have to be a switched on pet parent when handling, maintaining, cooking, cleaning, not cooking, cleaning, and calling out that making sure that things are balanced and complete is super important. And then that lands you with the fresh category. And it's the newest. It's really been driven by owners wanting, again, that next level of kind of dog food. The looks like dog food, has all the high digestibility, minus a lot of kind of processing or preservatives. So something that's lightly cooked for safety and digestibility, has the portioning element to take that pressure off owners, and again, the safety because it is cooked, and it's frozen. The other side of that is, well, for me, there's none, but from other sides, it can be space. You are having to store them. It can be obviously getting the delivery, and it can be cost to an extent. But there are some wonderful routes in terms of combination feeding, mixed feeding, and really getting out the benefits so that it works for everybody. But ultimately, across all four of these, the key is choosing something that works best for your dog, your budget, your lifestyle. We all know that this lifestyle variety and texture plays on what fits best for us and our dogs. And the key is picking something that is balanced and complete and works best for the whole round, not just, say, that individual circumstance. So to sum it up, a healthy, balanced diet for our dogs is more than just about one nutrient or one type of food. It's about a mix. Protein, fat, carbs, the right vitamins, minerals, and water all form to create highly digestible, complete and balanced meals. Every dog food, kibble, canned, raw, fresh, cooked, has its benefits, has its challenges. The best choice depends on your dog's life stages, needs, and what works best for you. And a really nice fun fact is dogs can actually taste sweetness, just to end on something a little bit different. They don't have as many taste sweet receptors as us, but they love taste, they love variety, they love change. And this is a wee call out that when you pick your meal, it is absolutely key and a priority, but also leaning into treats. So things like blueberries, apples are all built into, say, the likes of our butternut meals, but they're also great for treats. And the great thing is that no matter the diet that you feed, treats and should and could be included as part of your dog's routine. They're a fantastic way to reward, to reinforce good behavior, provide variety and enrichment, particularly if you're balancing maybe an older dog or a picky fussy eater. So often trying small bite size of different things, steamed vegetables or blueberries or apples as a treat, not only satisfy your dog's curiosity and taste buds, but you're also inadvertently supporting another free route to vitamins, minerals, extra fiber, a boost of antioxidants. So it makes treat time quite fun, but also an extra bonus in nutrition alongside the key meal that you've selected. Hopefully that's given a few little takeaways in terms of meals and nutrition. I'm going to pass back to Rach, just I think for maybe another little poll.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, that was lots and lots of great information there. And loved the little bit at the end about the treats. But yeah, before we move on to our next speaker, who will be Lucy, I think we'll have another little poll. So again, pop your answers into the chat box. So basically, what we're moving on to next with different feeding behaviours and things, we want to know, what is your biggest challenge you face when you're feeding your dogs? Are they a fussy eater? Are they a fast eater, maybe? Or do they scavenge? Do you struggle to keep weight on them? Do they gain weight too easy? Maybe they have an allergy. Let us know in the chat box. Lots of fussy eaters, lots and lots of fussy eaters coming through. Oh, so Kate's saying that both of her girls love their food. That's very lucky, isn't it? Yeah. Fast eaters, sensitive tummy. Yeah, lots of fast eaters actually as well. Brilliant. Yeah, so there's a big broad range of dogs coming through that we've got here today. So yeah, hopefully Lucy's next part should be quite helpful for you all. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Lucy. Lucy's going to deep dive into different life stages, health conditions, and feeding behaviours as well. So passing over to Lucy.
Thanks, Rachel. Hello, everyone. So, as Rachel mentioned, I'm Lucy, and I'm going to chat through a few ways we think about feeding in real life situations with our dogs. Because we know that in the real world, it's not just about the food in the bowl, but everything that comes with it. First of all, we're going to look at different life stages. So first up, we've got our puppies. We know that puppies are little energy machines. I've got a 14-week-old golden retriever called Nellie, and she's definitely proof of that. We know that they need the right balance of protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals, as Anna mentioned, to fuel that growth and development. We've also got things like DHA, which is a type of omega-3 fatty acid, which is also important for our pups as it's crucial for many various different bodily functions, including supporting brain and eye development. With our puppies, the goal is to achieve a controlled and steady growth. We can often find that if puppies, grow too fast, especially our larger breeds, this can lead to health issues later on down the line. So we want to make sure we've got that consistency with their growth. My puppy Nellie, she's a busy golden retriever, constantly on the go, whether she's running, playing, or exploring. And because she is so active, she does need a slightly higher calorie intake than maybe a calmer puppy would, because we need to support her active lifestyle. I also split her meals into 3 or even 4 smaller portions throughout the day, just to keep her energy steady and prevent any tummy upsets. Now we're going to take a look at our adult dogs, and once they move through puppyhood, their nutritional needs shift from growth to what we call maintenance. They need one that balances calories with their activity levels so that they can stay in a healthy body condition. And that's why when Butternut makes recommendations, we don't just look at their age and weight. We also factor in their activity level, body condition, and even the amount of snacks they're having throughout the day too. The goal for our adult dogs is to keep muscles strong, joints supported, and their weight stable. Too many calories can lead to an unwanted weight gain, which can put pressure on their joints and can affect their long-term health. And too few calories, they may be lacking the energy they need for their daily walks, play, or even training. Now we move on to our seniors. So our golden oldies, and as dogs get older, their metabolism does slow down, and their activity levels can often drop. So we want to be keeping a close eye on their weight and adjusting their portions if needed. Older dogs benefit from a more highly digestible, high quality protein to help maintain their muscles. And even if they are slowing down, strong muscles are really important as they support their joints, mobility, and help them stay active and comfortable. Alongside protein, our senior pups often need a little extra support for their joints. Ingredients like our omega-3 fatty acids are brilliant for helping to ease stiffness and keep their joints flexible. On top of that, antioxidants are great for protecting cells from age-related changes and supporting their overall well-being. They may also need a little extra fiber to keep everything moving nicely, and sometimes even a lower fat option if weight management is a concern. I saw a great question from Zara about whether a dog's food can affect their energy levels, and the short answer is yes. A well-balanced diet gives steady energy throughout the day, whilst low-quality foods or even the wrong portions can leave your dog either hyper or crashing, or just plain sluggish. The right nutrition really does make all the difference in how lively your pup feels. Now we've had a look at life stages, we're going to move on to behavior and feeding tips. So feeding can affect our dog's behavior. It's not just calories, it's also about how the food interacts with your dog's gut, and how this affects energy levels. First up, as we've seen in the chat, we have quite a few fussy eaters. Dogs can be picky for many reasons, such as a change in their normal routine. Could you have got a new dog? Could someone be visiting? Or could it be weather related? We know that when the weather gets hotter, this can affect how our dogs eat, exactly the same how it affects us. Or could it be, hormones taking a toll? We know that for our dogs coming into season, this can affect their eating, and it's often around this time where we can see, those food aversions happening. If you've got a picky pup, the key is routine and consistency. We know that our pups thrive on knowing what's coming next, and keeping meal times consistent really helps. If they're turning their nose up, little tricks like warming up the food slightly, adding a few spoonfuls of our bone broth, or even a few spoonfuls of water can help change the texture and make all the difference. If you're really struggling at the moment with your pup, we have a super fussy eating section on our help center, which is on our website. I saw Liz also mentioned that she has a 2.5-year-old cockapoo who doesn't have a consistent feeding routine, and days where she will eat and other days where she won't eat. And here we really want to be looking at her daily feeding schedule. For example, when is she more likely to eat? What times? We can find that sometimes with our fussier eaters, they become more inclined to eat in the evening and they just don't want that morning meal. And if that works for you and your routine, then that's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong. It really is about finding what works for everyone. You can even try looking at the location of where you're feeding. A lot of the time we put food down in the kitchen, and because life is busy, we go and do other jobs, or, whether it's getting the kids ready. And sometimes that can affect our dogs eating because they want us to be there. So feeding at a time where it's more relaxed, whether that's when you're sitting down for the evening, putting the food down next to you, when you're relaxed, that in turn makes our dogs more relaxed and more inclined to eat. There's lots of different ways you can try, to help. And really the key is to focus on that routine, building that routine so that our dogs know exactly what's coming. They know when they're going to eat. What we always recommend is feeding, little and often, and leaving the food down for 15 minutes. If they don't eat it, remove it. And then because we're doing the little and often, they don't have so long to wait for their next meal. And again, we just would continue to do this until our pups understand that, okay, I'm not going to get anything else during this time. And then, hopefully that routine is started to be built. With my pup, we recently went away and the change of routine really threw her off. It affected her eating. So to help, I made a couple of small tweaks, like serving her lunchtime meal on a licky mat or using puzzle feeders. And this made a huge difference and it kept her engaged. And now that we're home, she's back to normal, back to her normal routine. But it does just go to show how the change in routine can impact a dog's eating habits. A lot of people think as well that sugar makes dogs hyper, but actually it doesn't really work this way for them. What's really fascinating is the gut-brain axis. And in fact, 90% of serotonin, which is the happy chemical, is made in the gut. And this means the type of food dogs eat can have an indirect effect on their mood and also their behavior. Now we're going to move on to health conditions and, any needs that dogs may have. So I saw a couple of sensitive tummies in there, so we'll also run through a little bit about that too. So first up, we've got weight management. And just like us, some pups are more prone to piling on an extra few pounds. Diets that are lower in fat and slightly higher in fiber can help here because it helps keep them feel fuller for longer with the fiber, without sneaking in any extra calories and keeping their weight nice and healthy. For our sensitive tummies, we know that some dogs have more delicate digestions, where richer foods can lead to upset stomachs. So here, gentle proteins, soluble fiber, such as pumpkin, and probiotics are often a secret weapon. I transitioned, my pup, she's only 14 weeks, so when I transitioned her onto Butternut, I started with the leaner options just because she'd been on, a completely different food. It was kibble. And I took it slowly, nice and slowly, onto the leaner ones, and that went really well. And then about 3 weeks later, introduced her to some of the richer options. And my fault completely, I probably didn't go as slow as I should have done. And then I noticed soft stools. So I made the switch back to the game meal, which we know is nice and low in fat, and it sorted her tummy out within a couple of days. I left it for a little bit of time and then reintroduced the richer options at a slower rate, and she took to it much better this time round. We know that neutering can affect dogs. Dogs often need fewer calories as their metabolism can drop by about 20%. So they don't need as many calories as they would have done before neutering. And adjusting portions or choosing lighter recipe options can help, keeping them at a nice, healthy, and happy weight while still making sure, they're satisfied. It's important to note that all dogs are different, and we always recommend keeping a close eye on your pups when they've been neutered, because some dogs, it may not make a difference at all. However, with our other dogs, you can see that little bit of weight gain. So it's just really important to keep an eye, regularly checking their weight following them being neutered. So while butternut meals provide a complete nutritional foundation for your dogs, supplements can safely be added if your dog has specific needs. For example, for joint support, we're going to be looking for the supplements with the glucosamine, those omegas, and also for skin and coat health, fish oils, they're a great supplement to add. Once Nelly, my pup, turns 4 months old, I will start giving her a daily supplement of fish oil, because we know that golden retrievers are prone to joint issues as they grow, and the omega-3s in the fish oil will help support healthy cartilage and also joint function. And also for your dogs, if they've got an upset tummy or they're quite sensitive, you could be looking at adding that daily digestive support. So whether that's probiotics or fiber blends, they all work really well for that good gut bacteria. But I hope you've taken away some pointers, and I will pass back to Rachel.
Thank you, Lucy, for all that super helpful information that you've just gave us there. Before we do move on to our question and answer session, I think we'll have another little quick poll. But this time, I am going to be testing to see who has been listening. So again, pop your answers into the chat box for me. So I want to know, which nutrient do you think could give your dog the most energy? Now, I know that Anna mentioned this when she was talking, so I just want to make sure you've all been listening. Yeah, I can see lots of people have been listening. So we've got fats, proteins, lots of fats. Any more for any more? Fats, yeah, protein, fats, protein. Okay, yeah. So yeah, as Anna did mention earlier, the answer is in fact fat. Yeah. So just to recap, fat provides over twice the energy than protein and carbs, and it's also important for brain function and also for skin and coat health as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for getting involved in all the interactive parts today. It's been really great to see. But yeah, I just want to thank Lucy and Anna for sharing all that brilliant information. We hope you've picked up some new insights and yeah, some really useful tips and tricks and lots of information there to take away. So now we're going to dive into our question and answer session. So if you do have any questions, pop them into the Q&A box at the bottom for me. I just don't want to lose anybody's questions, because I noticed quite a few were coming through in the comments, and I was trying to get answers out to you guys, but I just don't want to lose them. So do pop them over into the Q&A box just so that we've got them there. So let's have a little look and see where we can go first. So I can see at the beginning actually that Lillian has asked about her puppy Juno. He's 5 months old. She's currently fed 3 meals a day when when can she be fed twice a day? Well, just to quickly answer that one, just to get it quickly out the way. So once your puppy is 6 months old, they can move down onto 2 meals a day. It's entirely up to you whether you move from 3 to 2. Go with the flow and see what is best for you. But yeah, it's absolutely safe to move your puppy to 2 meals a day from 6 months of age. So moving on, we have got Jenny. I'm going to ask this one to Anna, if that's okay, Anna. So we've got Jenny. We are always told to gradually introduce new foods over the period of a week or so, but does this apply to the different varieties, of Butternut Box? My Yorkie poo has a very delicate constitution and prone to pancreatic. I can't get my words out today. I think I need to go back to bed. Pancreatic problems. Can you help, Anna, with being our gut pro specialist?
Yeah, definitely. So, in a kind of blanket response initially, there is always advice to gently transition to a new meal. A lot of the time, most dogs you could probably transfer straight onto a new food and they'd be absolutely fine. But there are, of course, cases where it can be moving from, say, a kibble form to a fresh form, or maybe from a raw to a fresh. And that does have a different process in digestion. So it's probably less about the exposure of the proteins and the types and more about how the digestive system is going to break them down. So transition wise, always a good idea. Once you are up and say established on a meal of butternut, the really nice thing is the majority of the recipes are relatively similar. The dog's digestive system's used to the form, it's used to the kind of accessible proteins, digestive enzymes have kind of settled down. So the majority of dogs bounce really nicely through different meals and the variety works really well. So we tend not to, for the majority of dogs, say you need to transition between meals. We'd always recommend, in an ideal world, you could start with the lowest fat ones first because they're super gentle. So the chicken, the turkey, the game, and then go on to your kind of higher fat ones. But you shouldn't need much of a transition because they are, although different proteins, super similar in terms of their breakdown and how they are utilized by the body. But you've mentioned your Yorkie poo has a very delicate and prone to pancreatic kind of problems. Whenever there is an underlying health condition, whether it's pancreatitis, whether it's IBS, a bit of colitis, or maybe just a bit of a sensitive tummy, we always kind of tread a little bit more carefully. And that's purely because we know there's a history, and we know that with digestion, it can be much better to just be a bit cautious and take things a bit slower. So transitioning, we'd extend. So it was a little bit longer, maybe 10 to 14 days, and potentially pick one recipe. So you're doing just that. You're sticking to one protein source. You're keeping it really easy for digestive enzymes and those intestines, just using everything up. You're also removing too much pressure from the pancreas. So the pancreas is just doing one pretty straightforward job. It's not going to get angry or irritated. And you're also keeping that fat content down. And then you can introduce another recipe. Is it fully necessary? Possibly not. A lot of dogs do, even with like pancreatitis, do really well on the chicken, the turkey, and the game and bounce between them straight away. But that kind of gold star would be a gentle transition between them. Certainly to get up and running on the butternut meals in full, introduce one recipe and then potentially move to another. Sometimes because dogs can't tell us what's wrong, and particularly with a gut upset like pancreatitis, we don't have a huge amount to go on until it happens, whether they're licking because they've got a sore tummy, or they're stretching because they've got a bit of excess gas, or they have a bit of constipation or diarrhea. By treading really slowly and gently and being a little bit what feels like cautious, we potentially avoid that. And it allows us to then read those smaller cues, like maybe not going to the toilet as frequently, but it's still a good poo, or maybe just being a little bit more picky with meals. It's a much milder response that we can react to and prevent anything big from happening. So slow and steady, I think, is always the way forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Brilliant. So moving on, I am going to ask this one to Lucy, if that's okay. So Liz has asked, sorry, Molly, my 2.5-year-old cockapoo, does not eat regularly and often has a not eating day, but will make up by eating more the next day. Is this okay? How do I get her to eat on a regular schedule? Can you give some tips and tricks to Liz, please, Lucy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I mentioned it a little bit before, but it'd be great to, take a step back and look at what your current feeding routine looks like. For example, how many times a day? Um, is there a time where she is more inclined to eat? For example, we often find that our fussy eaters, they don't want morning meals. They're much more inclined to eat in the evening, which is absolutely fine. It'd also be worth looking at, is there a particular meal she prefers over others? There's lots of different factors, and unfortunately, there isn't an answer for all. It is about what works for her and finding that trigger. And once you've found that trigger, it does become a lot more easier. But I think, like I said, it's about, starting that feeding routine and really building on it, because then that lets her know exactly what she's going to expect. So whether that's in the first thing in the morning, you leave a tablespoon of butternut down, leave it down for 15 minutes. If not, if she doesn't eat it, remove it. And then maybe a couple of hours later, doing the same thing. So yes, it may feel a little bit of a chore at the beginning, constantly putting food down and taking it away. But what you're doing is building on that routine and sort of letting her know that this is what we're going to be doing from now on. And it would also be, good to look at treats, the treat side. Obviously for training treats, we wouldn't, say not to give them, but it's other treats that she is having. And I'm guilty of it with my puppy. I'm like, no, she hasn't had many treats today. And then all of a sudden I look back and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it was a little bit too much. Or is she holding out for, higher rewards? So whether that's the odd bit of chicken whilst you're cooking your food. There's lots of different things that could be sort of need to be taken into account to really understand. I would say it's definitely one to reach out to us. Rachel will give the details at the end. But it'd be great to have, an in-depth chat, know everything about her feeding routine, and then sort of put a plan in place to how we could help. Because every fussy dog is different and it's just about finding what works for them.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucy. Yeah, absolutely. Same with all these questions that are coming through, because I can see that there's quite a lot of personal ones as well. We are all here and available for appointments you can book with us, but I'll go into the details of that at the end anyways. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us afterwards if you do want more of a personalised answer to your problems. So moving on, I did see somebody was talking about allergies. So we've got Tiggy is a 3-year-old mini schnauzer. She has unidentified allergies that cause her skin to be very dry. She's on tablets, so she's on Apoquel, and a specific shampoo seems to help. Should I limit her diet to Butternut Box chicken meals only, for example, and see if this helps with her skin? Could she be allergic to beef, another protein source? Any advice? So I'm going to answer that one because I do love a little bit of allergies. So yeah, when it comes to allergies, it's a bit of a minefield. There's not one test out there that is 100% reliable and can tell us what our dogs are allergic to. And there's also 2 different types of allergies. So with allergies, there is the environmental allergies. So these are things such as dust, pollens, grasses. And yeah, we can't stop exposure because, for example, we can't take away all the grass in the world if our dogs are allergic to grass, for example. So with these types of allergies, they do need medication to help relieve their symptoms. And this is when they need to go to the vets, basically. And get these, there's lots of different medications out there. Your next one would be your food allergies. Now, food allergies, again, in an ideal situation, we don't feed them what they're allergic to, but it's not as easy as that, because we need to find out exactly what it is they are allergic to. And I suppose the downfall here is that a dog could eat something that they're allergic to and actually react for sort of 6 to 8 weeks after. So to truly find out what our dogs are allergic to, we can do elimination trials and things. Now, usually, well, actually, the most common protein that dogs tend to be allergic to is chicken and beef. Beef being the most common, and chicken in second place. So I would always say at first to avoid these 2 proteins and do sort of 8 weeks without with the, you know, avoiding these in your dog's diets, just to see if this does sort of help and relieve those symptoms. If it does, fantastic, really quick fix in a sense. I mean, you know, it's took only the 8 weeks to find out. Then yeah, great, we can just avoid these in the future. If you're finding that your dog's still itchy, then that's when we go down to one protein, and we would test one protein at a time and trial that one protein. So for example, you could pick pork and feed pork for sort of 6 to 8 weeks after. Now we do have novel proteins. So novel proteins are proteins that dogs don't tend to have been exposed to, so they don't tend to have allergies to them. So our novel proteins would be pork. For example, if you walk down the aisle in Pets at Home and went down the dog food aisle, there's not many foods out there that do contain pork. And another one would be our game recipe, which is the venison and duck. Now, this one's a bit more difficult when it comes to allergies because it is a dual protein, and usually we like to test one at a time, but it is one of those novel protein choices as well. So yeah, there's lots of different things we can do for allergies. You can keep diaries, write down where they walk, what they eat, see if any patterns do sort of develop. That can also be helpful, just to see if anything does sort of arise. But yeah, there's lots and lots of things we can do for allergies. So if anybody does, you know, want to speak about allergies on a more personal level, do feel free to get in touch with us. So I hope that was helpful. So next we're going to move on. So I did see one in regard to, where's it gone? There's lots and lots of questions coming through now, actually. Anna, someone was asking basically does how does feeding a wet food, is it a disadvantage to feeding kibble when it comes down to dental health? Can you give a bit of insight into that?
I can. And the reason it disappeared is because I just jumped on a reply, so I apologize.
Oh.
But it's a really solid question, and it's one that comes up every time we do these. It's
Yeah.
definitely one that comes up, is dental health. And I think a lot of tradition is centered around reassurance of feed a kibble diet. It's not going to stop your dog having bad teeth, but maybe that crunch will help. There's very little evidence that suggests feeding a kibble prevents or improves dental health. And the reason for that is teeth are a bit like kind of icebergs. The tip of the iceberg, which is the bit we see, is the white bit. The kind of protruding tooth, that is just the tip of the iceberg. And the actual tooth, if you've ever seen a proper dog's tooth, they're huge. So you've got the little iceberg that sits on top and the big kind of tooth underneath. And a large portion of this is covered by the gums. If you are feeding a really good kibble, there's a chance it might touch the edges, touch the sides, but a bit like when we're teaching our kids to brush their teeth or we're brushing our own teeth, we're focusing on the gum line. We are brushing at the gum line. We're using something that's going to clean this area and really kind of get into those areas that the saliva doesn't get to, that the rubbish builds up, that all little bits of leftover treats sit in. So a kibble isn't going to do that. It might help take a bit off the sides, but it's not going to hit the gum line, which is the important bit. You can get dental specific kibbles, which are more designed to land at the gum line. I've tried them with my old terrier before, and the problem was she just kind of swallowed the whole thing's whole. So it didn't really have a benefit to her. It depends on your dog. The absolute gold standard is to ensure your dog's nutrition is covered, that we are feeding them for healthy and making sure bones and teeth are covered, and then bringing in preventative care. Toothbrushing, dental chews, encouraging them to actually chew, gets the saliva going, it also helps them relax and de-stress, but it gets that kind of natural motion going. There's also lots of things like liquids you can put in their water that help that kind of plaque build up. So probably a combination is better. Not everybody can brush their dog's teeth, but there's loads of preventative things you can do. It might be focused chews, it might be encouraging chewing, it might be using Kongs filled with, Butternut Box, but again, it's getting that grinding, it's getting that chewing going. It's a combination, and definitely never at any stage potentially rely on food to keep your dog's teeth healthy. Hopefully that helps.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, I can see lots and lots actually of dental questions come through, and as we say, we see them all the time. So just thought it'd be really, really useful to answer. So thank you so much for for all that information. So next I am going to move to Lucy, and I'm going to ask Lucy, my 11-month Australian Labradoodle puppy is being fed the recommended amount based on his weight, but during the day he keeps going to his bowl looking for more food, so not sure if we need to increase him. Can you advise?
Yeah, absolutely. So it can be normal for young dogs, especially, our more active breeds, to seem like they're always on the hunt for more food. And I think that there is a fine line between, are they just being, greedy and looking for that more food, or are we looking at hunger? One way would be to check your pup's body condition. Are they sitting nicely where we want them to be? Maintaining that weight, not losing any weight. Because this would give the first indication of, could it be hunger, or could we just be looking at a greedy pup? Now you could look at splitting meals, so adding in an extra meal just to, see if this helps. It may not, and that's absolutely fine. But it is a little bit of trial and error just to see how he can feel more satisfied. Another option would be looking at how quickly does he eat his meals. My pup, she can finish her bowl of butternut in about 5 seconds flat. So, are we looking at a fast eater? Could we look at slowing feeding down, using puzzle feeders, licky mats? They work great with butternut, especially licky mats, because you can just sort of spread them on and let your pup get to work. But yeah, I think it is a little bit of a mixture. One thing I would say is, key is to look at his body condition, see how that's looking. Is he a nice weight? And also look at behaviors. So, for example, if is he surface gliding? How is he after, for example, his morning and evening meal? Is he quite content? Is it just that middle of the day where he's looking for food, or is it sort of more often? You could even take a tablespoon of butternut from the morning meal, for example, make it into little meatballs and just give it in that the time where you notice that hunger starts to come in, to see if that does make the difference. If all of these things don't make any difference, then maybe we could be looking at, is he more active? Could we look to increase pouch size and see, that just because you increase the pouch size doesn't mean you're set to that pouch size. You can always change it. You could look to increase by 10% and seeing if that makes a difference. It just, sorts out that hunger. But it is a little bit of trial and error. But if you do need any more support, feel free to get in touch, and we can always help you.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucy. I just realised I hadn't popped the any questions slide on, so I do apologise. But yeah, I think, well, we're coming to the end of our question and answer session now, and I think that is pretty much, unfortunately, all we do have time for. So we really do hope that you've enjoyed this session and you found it really useful and picked up a few new tips and things along the way. If we didn't manage to get to your question, please don't worry. You can drop us an email at vetnurses@butternutbox.com, and we'll be sure to get back to you with an answer. You can always join our Facebook community too. So we do have a page called For the Love of Dogs, where we share advice, support, and there's plenty of dog chat on there as well. Don't forget, as we mentioned, you can book a free appointment with one of us anytime through your Butternut app. So please do feel free, if you want some more personalised sort of answers, you've asked a question, you think, oh, I could do with a chat with one of the vet nurses, please do book through the online system. It'll give you a 20-minute slot where we will give you a call in that 20-minute slot. Don't feel like you're constrained to time or anything like that. Yeah, we're more than happy to offer some advice. This can be in regard to anything as well. So weight, portions, fussy eating, digestion, skin and allergies, general advice. Please feel free to book an appointment with us. But from myself, Anna and Lucy, we'd like to say a huge thank you for joining us today. We really do hope you found it really useful. And yeah, I wish you all a great afternoon, and thank you to you guys too for being really, really interactive. It's been really great. So yeah, have a great afternoon, everyone. Take care.